I really don't think there's anything more important than learning how to communicate effectively when we're talking about something we feel so passionately about. And I realize that today is September 22nd, 2012, and it is the fall equinox. The fall equinox is all about change. And how we're going to get to that change quicker is learning how to communicate more effectively with those people that we interact with on a day-to-day basis. And also the equinox is about balance. We're getting into Libra now. It's all about balance. It's the equal amount of daytime and sunlight. And with that, I believe that for speaking about our cause, there is a time that it's important to tell people about the hidden confinement centers and the slaughterhouses and what's actually happening to all these beings in their invisible world that's kept so hidden from the mass population. It's important to talk about that. And there's also a time to talk about the light part, right? The light as far as how good you feel when you're vegan. I mean, the energy you get and the aliveness you feel when you're eating live, whole, plant-based foods, and just the incredible amount of recipes that are out there. And so it's important to talk about that as well. And as a communication trainer, I believe that some of the best communication is no words. No words at all. It's just being. Who are we being? What do we look like? Are we kind to people? What does our skin look like? I can tell now. I can totally tell when I'm doing classes and people come up. I've been doing classes for so long, and I can tell when somebody's been eating a really healthy diet just by looking at their skin. And so you can be a walking billboard just by walking around and just showing up as someone who looks healthy and is kind to people. One of the kindest and healthiest people I know is actually in this room, John Frasco. Will you raise your hand, please? I mean, his skin just glows. Thank you very much. And he's so kind. I watch his example, and he is just kind to people. And he doesn't necessarily promote a lot of food and all of that, but when people ask him, they go, yeah, that guy's got something going on. What is it? They become curious. So what we're going to talk about in the next hour is, I've been doing communication work for the last decade and a half, and I figured the two most important things I can share with you today are how can you think on your feet and answer those really tough questions in the moment. So that when you're driving off, you go, yes, that's exactly what I wanted to say. And for the longest time, I thought it was just me who had this feeling like, oh, why did I say that? You know, I walk away from some situations going, oh, if I would have just said this, it would have been so much better. So I'm going to share with you a 5-step process for how you can think on your feet, say exactly what you want in the moment, really connect with people, and walk away feeling good. I mean, the worst thing to me is walking away going, oh man, if I would have said this, that person might have gone vegan. That person might have been a healthier person. That person could have been the one person that would help our environment. That person would have been a ripple effect to all the other people in their lives if I would have just said that. But I didn't, you know. But, you know, you can't be too hard on yourself. You can't beat yourself up. Improv, and improvisation is all about how can you engage people? How can you bring them toward you? Like communication comes from the word commune, which means come together, rather than repel people. Like the angry vegan who people go, ooh, man, I never want to go down that road. They seem so upset all the time. And I totally get why this happens, because when our awareness goes up and you start understanding what's happening out there, we do get a little bit agitated. It's like in my skin, I'm going, come on, haven't you seen one of the gazillion videos out there? But no, you got to meet people where they are, really engage them. So we'll be doing some yes and exercises, showing you some real practical examples how you can actually come together with people even though inside you might be saying, but you actually are a person that they go, I want to spend more time with that person. I really want to spend more time with them. How many of you have ever been asked a question that you find difficult to answer? Anybody? Every hand goes up. What are some of the tough ones? Give me a few. Yes?
The omnivorous thing I mentioned.
Okay.
Yeah, like humans are omnivorous, like it's not natural.
Okay, so that, I'm glad you brought it up because we have to understand what is really a question and what is somebody trying to make a statement. And some people just want to make statements, they're not really asking you a question. You can tell when somebody really is asking you a question they really want to know because they'll be looking at you, waiting for you to take a breath and to actually respond, and they're real curious. They have like that Curious George kind of look on their face where they're wanting to know. Other times I have heard that 80% of the questions are really statements in disguise. So you'll be able to tell if people are genuinely asking you a question or just trying to make a statement, posing it in the form of a question. What else? What's another question you have? Yes, sir?
What about all the other wrongs in the world? How come you can just care about that?
Okay, what about all those other wrongs in the world? You just care about these lowly, incredible beings. Okay, yes?
You're a vegan? How can you do it?
How can you do that? And that might be a genuine question because people are genuinely curious, like, how do you do it?
I said it was easy.
Yeah, and thank God all of you are here because you can be that ambassador and actually tell people how you did it. They want the practical steps. You know, what do I have when I'm in a hurry and I just need to get on with my day? Okay, so let's get into it. I'm going to share with you a 5-step process. You have it on the handout. There are more handouts in the back if you need one. And I have spent years coming up with this, and I'll tell you there are times I forget to do this, and there are times that I remember to do it, and this always works. It will bring forth your authentic voice. It'll be an answer that you feel good about and that people want to listen to. The very first step in this process is what? Listen. Sounds pretty simple, doesn't it? And yet so many of us have so many things going on in our minds, right? When they're asking the question, you might be thinking, oh, I know what I said to that person last time, I can say this again, or what am I gonna... A lot of times we're not really listening to what the question is or to discern if it really is a question or if they're trying to make a statement. For so long, I thought, I have such a hard time listening to people. I really do. It's one of my faults. I have a really hard time listening. And as a young kid growing up in Minnesota, I would sit at the table, everyone's chowing down their meat, and I would be a million miles away. I was not listening at all. And many of us have learned that trait as a little child to check out and go into our cave where we're safe. We might physically be there, but we're over here somewhere. So to really listen was a hard thing for me for a long time. And so I realized one day, I go, you know why that is? You know why I have a hard time listening to other people? Because I haven't even listened to myself for a very long time. And we're thinking, why should I listen to all these other people when we haven't really listened to ourselves? And I encourage you just for like 15 seconds to just close your eyes. Just, get comfortable in your chair, because this is a short little, 15, 30-second exercise to listen to yourself. When you're talking to people about food choices, the more you can come from that intuitive higher place in yourself, the better. So you've got your eyes closed, and take a breath. Just notice how you're breathing. If you want to get a little more comfortable in your chair, move around, whatever's going to make you more comfortable. Let the chair do its job, and that is to support you. So you're just going to let gravity take your body down into the chair. Put a little attention on your heart. You might feel it beating in there. And then just relax the forehead muscles. All those muscles in your forehead and the little muscles around your eyeballs, just let those relax. Then put a little attention on your stomach. We hold a lot of emotions in our stomach. And just ask yourself right now, if my body had a message for me, what would that message be? Yeah, so that was short little exercise. I would love to do this for like about 3 or 10 minutes with you, but we have a short amount of time. So chances are you feel more grounded right now. You feel a little bit more centered in yourself. And this is the place that we want to speak to other people from. This is the place where we're grounded and we're connected to our higher selves, and we're going to come up with an answer that is more true for us, and that's what people are looking for. So really listen. Listen to yourself and then listen to them. And when I say listen, I mean listen to the tone of their voice. Okay? Listen to the tone of their voice. I could pick out any sentence in this book and take my glasses down and say, I'll read it 2 different ways for you and see if the meaning changes. Once you've created a safe environment, add some stimulation and excitement. Okay, now here's another way. Once you've created a safe environment, add some stimulation and excitement. Totally different message, right? So you're going to notice what words they emphasize. Okay? What do they put more emphasis on when they are asking the question? And the more you do that, the more you'll tune into what they're really looking for. Second step is to pause. Take a breath. Why don't we all just take a breath right now, right? If you've ever been at a party and you've said to yourself, I just couldn't think of what to say, chances are you weren't breathing. And be okay to take one breath. And I'll guarantee you, if people really want to know your answer, they will allow you one breath, 1 3-second breath. And then you'll find out if they don't really want your answer, and they don't care if you're breathing or not. They're just trying to make a statement, right? So this is a really good sign for that. Pause and take a breath. What's step number 3? Repeat the question. Thank you. And why do we do this? Why do we repeat the question? Some people in my seminar say, oh, I hate that when people repeat the question back. You know, it's like, oh, tone is right. Tone is everything. You know, you want to know how I get my protein. And then you're kind of calming yourself down. You've probably heard this 1,000 times, right? So for one thing, you're going, okay, easy, girl, easy. So you're asking me how I get my protein, yeah. And that really helps a lot. And you'll find that if you do it with that intention of you really want to be on the same page with them, for one thing, it really helps with clarity. Because sometimes people ask a question, then you're answering a different kind of question. And if it's one you don't understand, it's really helpful to just repeat the question back. So you're asking me this, and it feels good. It feels really good to that person because they feel acknowledged. They feel like you heard them. Yeah. Find that most people, it starts the connection process going, and it gets you aligned, and it also gives you a chance to ask yourself that question. So how do I feel about this? And if it's a contemplative question, I've seen people time and time again where they just come up with a completely different answer because of doing this step. Step number 4 is, oh man, this can be a hard one. I mean, most people in our world say, I'm honest all the time. And when you really look at it, sometimes not so honest, right? How many times do people ask us a question and we respond with what we think they need to hear? Has that ever happened? It happens to me a lot. I catch myself. I teach this stuff so I can catch myself out there when I'm doing this. And this is all about Respond honestly means to be able to be vulnerable, to be able to speak your truth, my truth, in the moment and say what's real for us. And that is what really gets people. I mean, who wants to be preached at? Not me. Energy I run from. You probably do too. You just run from that kind of energy because it doesn't feel good. So if people ask you a tough question, and you do the other steps, you're listening, you're pausing, repeat the question, and you respond from your heart of hearts. That's where all of your power is, right there. And you tell them the truth. I'll tell you a little story. When I grew up in Minnesota, in 1976, I was turning 18 years old. And on my 18th birthday, April 12th, 1976, my superhero was going to come to town, Alice Cooper. I loved Alice Cooper. No more Mr. Nice Guy. I mean, I'm 18. He was going to be singing on my 18th birthday. And I wanted to go so bad. He was expressive. He was true to himself. He was everything I wanted to be. And on April 12th, 1976, there was also another event. And that event was the Martin County Dairy Princess Contest. And I'll tell you what, when you are the daughter of a dairy farmer, you enroll in the Dairy Princess Contest. It was the last thing in the world I wanted to do. I hated public speaking. I was so terrified of public speaking. You had to get up and answer questions, right? And the other thing was, well, I wanted to go see Alice Cooper. But besides that, growing up on a dairy farm in southern Minnesota, I absolutely hated milk. I mean, I was forced to drink it, and I was sick from it. I mean, it just really made me sick and ill. And watching other people drink this milk that I knew, I mean, I would see calves drinking this milk, and then the calves taken away so we could get the milk. None of it made any sense to me. But you know how it is when you're trying to fit into a world. You're trying to fit in, you're trying to belong. At 18 years old, I thought, okay, what do I have to do to be accepted? I guess I better do this thing. Other dairy farmer daughters out there, and they'd ask them questions like, well, what kind of cows does your dad milk? And they all knew the answers, and they were all like so proud, and we get this many gallons of milk for each cow, and then we have the cow for this long. They knew all that stuff, and imagine, I was scared to talk to two people at the same time. One-on-one, I could maybe do if they were a friend of mine, two people. But these judges, they were sitting there, they're big, you can imagine, right? They were scary to me at 18 years old. And I'd get up there and they'd say, how many gallons of milk does your dad get? And I just froze. I was just like, the only thing running through my mind in that moment was, well, I've heard people say, we're going to milk them for all we can get. We've heard that line a lot. But all I really wanted to say was, they're my friends. They're the ones that I felt most comfortable talking to. And, none of this makes any sense to me. Well, guess what? I didn't win. Thank God, in a way, because you have to ride around these big floats. Have any of you ever gone to a Dairy Princess contest? I mean, I'm not kidding you. They carve your head out of a 90-pound block of butter. I mean, you have to sit there in this cooler, because it's in a cooler, and they chisel away a head out of this big 90-pound block of butter. And there you are. There's your head in the thing of butter. So in a way, I was very happy I didn't win. But at 18, and even today, a lot of us are wanting to fit in to mainstream. We want to belong. We want to be the sense of belonging, even we know there's something not quite right in some areas. So that's the thing, I think, why it can be so hard to respond honestly. We want to say what we think other people want to hear, or what we think they should be doing. So to respond honestly, for one, it builds a lot of self-respect. You may not win every person over, but if you're connected with them and you're answering truthfully for yourself, you're gonna feel stronger, you're gonna feel better, and chances are you're gonna get a lot more people listening to you by just responding with your honest answer, even if it's very vulnerable for you. This can be one of the hardest things around, to know when to stop. I was doing this up in Seattle, Washington, that's where I live right now, and I asked this woman, she came up, we'll play around when we have more time, we actually play and practice with this. So I asked her a question, she was standing up here, just imagine her, cute little, like, I don't know, maybe 60-year-old lady, she really, anyway, I asked her, so what do you like best about where you live? She did the first 4 steps beautifully. She was listening. She was totally there. She paused. She repeated the question. So you're asking me what I like best about where I live? Yeah. She goes, you know what? I'd have to say it's the birds outside my bedroom window in the morning. I just love hearing them. You know, it's so much better than the last place I lived. The last place I lived was right on 405, right, you know, next to 24/7 traffic going all the time. And there were some kids in the cul-de-sac with their basketballs. They had a basketball, and this lady went on and on and on. I'm like, you had us. You totally had us with the birds. And now you don't. Now you don't, because now you're trespassing on our space. And we didn't ask you about what you don't like, right? And so she went on and on and on. And so many times that happens for us because we're afraid of silence. Especially if we have a good listener, then we go on and on and on and on. And it goes on too long, right? So know when to stop. If you're in the moment, somebody asks you a question, where do you get your protein? I eat a lot of tempeh. You know, whatever it is, know when to stop. And then if they're really engaged, they might ask you another question. Then it's like you're having a dialogue, not a monologue, right? So know when to stop. You'll feel it. If you're really in the moment, if you're really connected to that person, you're going to feel it. Okay, so let's go on to the second part. We're about halfway through with this, and I want to share with you some of the things I've learned in improvisation. Have any of you done improv? Yes. Oh, wow, a few of you, right. So you know the whole principle of yes and. Yes and means that you are engaging people. They offer you a gift on stage and you take it in. And I'll tell you where we're going with this in a minute. Yes and is you're connecting with them and you're moving the scene forward. What we usually do is something called no but. And that means a debate. Okay, I'll show you this. Could you help me with this, Karen? Just put these up on here. Okay, so what happens in most corporations today is you walk into a conference room, somebody has an idea, it's like a brainstorming session, and you throw out an idea, and then your partner or your colleague will say why that won't work. No, but, instead of yes and. I'll show you this. These two circles, thank you, are about the same size, right? What happens in a no but situation is that somebody throws out an idea and the other person says why it won't work. You throw out another idea, this person says why it won't work, and it goes on and on like that. Now here's another possible situation. This is called yes and, where this is what Einstein and Pauli and Bohr and all those guys, when they got together, they would discuss ideas and brainstorm, and anything goes. Somebody tells you something that you can't believe, you go with it. So they throw out an idea, they throw out another idea, and it goes round and around in a circle like this. I don't want to draw on this screen. You get the idea. So these circles were about the same size when we started. Which environment would you rather live in? Yeah, this one, right? It's expansive, it's open, it gives people a chance to move forward. It gives you space. This one is very tight, very constricted, and people can't breathe in that kind of environment. So what I'm going to share with you are a couple practical examples of how you might engage with people who are not necessarily vegan. And even if you're not vegan now, that's all right. You can use this for anything in your life where you want to move something forward, or if people are having a conversation where you'd rather engage them and be playful and move it forward rather than tight, 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 and they want to get away from you, you know? Okay, so Karen's going to come up and we're going to give you a couple different examples. Are there any questions before we get started? Sure. Yeah.
What about if you're engaged with someone who is making a statement? Do you just walk away then?
No.
I mean, it gets to where it's aggressive and you're not gonna win.
Right. Okay. Well, that's obvious. They don't really want to know your.
They don't really care to know.
Right. And there are too many people that do want to know. Is my viewpoint. So I try to find those people because we will burn out. Haven't you been there? I've been there so many times where you're trying and trying and trying with the wrong people. Sometimes your family that you love so much and they don't get it. But you need to move on because there are way too many people who do want your information. And like, I love you guys. I mean, just for being in this room, just for like wanting to explore this, it gives me energy because I know we're all in this and we're all like trying to move forward and we all want new ideas. And the other way, I get burnt out, okay? So here are some examples. Karen, you're gonna be the vegan, right? No, you're gonna be the meat eater. And we'll swap roles. I'm good. She's really a vegan. She really is. This is like acting here. Okay, so Karen's a meat eater, and we might be having a dialogue. I'm going to show you the first example of yes and, right? So this is the yes and approach. You're going to find something, as hard as that might be, but you, with your great imagination, you're going to find something you can agree with about what they just said. I know, it's already getting tense in here. You're going to find something. Okay, so the meat eater says to me,
oh, I could never give up dairy. I love cheese too much.
you love cheese. Yeah, I remember I used to love cheese too. I would get those double cheese pizzas. You know, you could pick up one slice and the whole thing would just be, I love that. And then I did a little bit of research and I found out what it took to get that cheese on my plate. And I realized that the cows have to be pregnant to give milk. And most people think that cows just naturally give milk. Well, they don't. They have to be pregnant, and then the calves are taken away from them. And then that's how we get the milk and the cheese and the ice cream and the yogurt. And so once I found that out, I just lost my taste for it. And then we would go on with the conversation, but it goes something like that. You see how I found something to agree with. And most all of us have not been raised vegans. Most of us ate that stuff, or are still eating it at one time or another. Okay, so here's another one. We're going to do the yes and approach for this one as well.
But I only eat organic meat and cage-free chicken eggs. I mean, I like to know my animals have had a good life.
So it sounds like you really care about the welfare of animals. You an animal lover?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, me too. Yeah, and when I first was eating eggs that said cage-free, I thought, wow, you know, they're probably out prancing and dancing on the grass and having a good time scratching, but they're not. Actually, cage-free, I found out that it just means they're not in those tiny little pens. They're actually all crammed in this one huge building, so they're cage-free, but they don't necessarily ever touch the ground. They're not outside like the marketers would like us to believe. Yeah? Okay, so then we carry on a little bit about that. Now, why don't we do a no but, just so you get the other extreme of how this might be?
I get to be the vegan now.
I'm a meat eater, and I was at one time in my life, but no longer. Okay, so, okay. This is how it might go. This one's a little bit touchy. I've read the Bible, Karen. And it says right in there that God gave us dominion over the animal.
No, it says that he gave us the Garden of Eden with lots of produce to eat in the Garden of Eden.
To eat. No, but what about all those fishing stories? You know, they're out there fishing. That's right there in the Bible.
Well, no, he talked about giving us herb-bearing seeds, and that was to be our meat.
I don't think God would have given us all those animals if he didn't want us to eat them.
Well, in India, cows are sacred, and besides, Jesus was all about compassion and not killing.
Yeah, you see how we're kind of getting into it now? We want to kill each other. We're completely in this mode. So that's what debate does. Even though we feel so strongly about something and we're pulling our hair out going, God, can't you see? Compassion, hello? But if we get into that, no, it just gets tighter and tighter and tighter. Then we want to get away from each other so that we can breathe again. Okay, so let's end with one of the yes and ones.
Can you do the same question as the one you just did?
Well, let's do this other one. Because that Bible one, that's a tough one. We might play around with that a little bit. You know, I would say something probably like, you know what, it sounds like you're really into spirituality. And spirituality is the most important thing in my life. I mean, without spirituality, what do I have? My house, my car, none of that stuff means anything to me when I'm on my deathbed. So I totally get about the spirituality. You know, so I would just find one thing to connect on, and that would be true for me. It's got to be true for you, otherwise it's not going to work. Okay, so thank you. I get to be the vegan again. Vegan. Karen's going back to the meat eater.
Well, my husband, he's a real meat eater, and so are all my friends. I just like to fit in and be normal. I don't want to cause any, stir any waves up or anything.
Right. So you like to fit in and be normal. Yeah, I totally get that. I mean, when I was growing up, I felt like an outcast the whole time. And it wasn't until I really got in touch with my values and what was really important to me, and then I started living those values, that's when I started to feel comfortable in my own skin. So you see how you just kind of go back and forth. You just find, let's give Karen a hand. Yes, my vegan friend, thank you, you gotta love her. But anyway, it is so easy to find out what we don't like about something. Isn't it easy? It's so easy for me to find a comma that's missing in a sentence or something that isn't quite right. It's easy. What's harder is to find something that we have in common with that person. That can be a real stretch at times, especially when we're talking about food choices, which can be such a charged topic. So to find something, it doesn't mean that you're agreeing with it, but you are accepting their gift. As in improvisation, you accept the gift they have just given you. You find something you can agree with them, and then they're going to feel connected with you. They're not going to feel like they have to get their boxing gloves on right away. So that, as difficult as it can be, is the way to engage people and keep them engaged in the conversation. Okay? So we've gone over the 5-step process. There's so much more. I wrote this book, Giving Voice to Your Cause, because for one, I had such a hard time with it. And there are times that you don't want to answer a question. That's in here too. And just a lot. I have 60 tips just on how to answer tough questions in the moment and engage people and say what you want in a very concise way. I think so many of us have so much to say. Don't we? Don't you? We have a lot to say. And then to make that concise in a real powerful nugget of information that leaves people going, oh, wow, what was that? They walk away. Always leave them wanting more rather than too much. Too much. So how can you say just the right amount? It's not that you say 3 words and that's it and you walk away, but you're so in the moment, you're so connected to them that you can feel. Are they wanting more, or are they just processing it? If there's silence, for some people, it's the very first time they've heard anything like we have to say. Just 2 weeks ago, I was assisting at a vegan class, and the vegan teacher cooking this class did not know that cows had to be pregnant to give milk. And she was horrified. She looked at me and she went, "No!" And I said, "Yeah, you know." And she goes, "What's so bad about eggs then?" I'm like, "Well, you know, all the male chicks are thrown in the grinder live." I mean, I was like, doesn't everybody know this? Because I've been around for so long and know all this stuff. But we have to understand, for some people, it's the first time they've even conceived of such an atrocity happening. And she was like this, and it really got me thinking, you know, meet people where they are. I think people are basically good and kind and compassionate, and they don't want to be these evil people we've all been marketed to so heavily. We've been indoctrinated by the meat and dairy industries about what we need to be eating, that people are just trying to follow the rules for a lot of them. So to wake them up a little bit at a time is a compassionate thing to do. Yes?
Do you have any tips for when you may have already turned people off?
Okay, how many of you have ever done that? Where you're walking away going, "Oh God." I was like a crazy person one time, scraping my dad's butter off his bread. I swear, if I had a replay of that, I would have looked totally insane. So I know what you're talking about. I think almost everyone in here does too. And I think honesty is the very best thing we can do. Either, you know, like I even talked to my mom. I said, you know, I was like a crazy person there. And you just gotta laugh about it sometimes. It depends on the person you're talking to. Or to just say, you know, it just breaks my heart so much to know what's going on. And I know I kind of snapped at you the other day, and I'm sorry. That's it. That's all you got to do. And everyone's going to feel better, because we can all feel the tension when something was a little bit crazy. We can all feel it. So to just address it simply, cleanly, and be done with it, and move on, and talk about something they want to talk about. That'd be good. Thanks for asking that question. Yeah.
What do you do when someone asks you a question that seems like they're genuinely interested, but then when you go to answer, specifically about the animals, and then they'd rather be the ignorance is bliss, and so it's like, oh no, don't tell me that, I don't hear.
Right.
They wanted to know, so you're like ready to tell them, but then all of a sudden they like cut you off because they don't really want to know the bad news.
Right. Tell me about how pigs are actually raised and what they do in the slaughterhouse. Then you go to tell them, they're like, no! It's like, well, when you are ready to hear this, I'll send you a link to a YouTube clip. When you are ready. And for a lot of people, they just want to do it in their own home, you know, or they just want to do it later when they're ready, little bit by bit. So you might say something like that. You know, when you are ready, you know, it's pretty horrific, and it really was hard for me to watch too, so I totally get it. And then just say, this is what I saw, and this is where I saw it. Yeah. And when you're ready, I'm here. And you just, the most important thing I want to leave you with is just that relationship is more important than being right. So many of us, me included, just want to be right. We don't want to be wrong. We want to be right. But that does not serve the animals, us being right. That doesn't serve them. And it also creates this barrier between me and the other person. So just keep that relationship strong. And then you be that person that they can come to when they are ready. They're going to, like 3 weeks later or 2 years later, they're going to go, geez, that person was really nice. You know, I'm going to ask them about it again. Okay, so we are out of time. One quick one.
Okay, could you give me a sample of a yes and to someone who says, oh, there's no way I can give up meat?
Okay, so what's a simple yes and approach to somebody who says, I could never give up meat? You might give them Kathy Freston's book, because she's all about leaning into it, you know, and was giving up meat hard for you at all?
Yes.
Okay,
Give my example of how hard it was.
exactly. What was the hardest thing for you about giving up meat?
Kentucky Fried Chicken.
Okay, you love Kentucky Fried Chicken because it's got MSG. Did you know that? It's loaded with MSG. It's the highest in the fast food. Anyway, that's a whole different thing. But that's probably one of the reasons you couldn't give it up. But you just say, I get it. For me, Kentucky Fried Chicken was the hardest thing for me to give up. And I didn't think I could ever do it. And then they look at you now and you have done it. Yeah. So I have a lot of YouTube clips where I go over, I'm doing elemental cuisine, so I do a lot of cooking classes with kids. There's videos on that, and also different tips on how to speak up and like when people are resisting ideas. I encourage you, just go to PamelaZiemann.com, bottom of the page, there's a YouTube icon. Click on that, you get a lot of different videos that might help your particular topic. And also, come over to my booth, I'm in number 4 if you have anything that we didn't get covered in this short time together. And I just want to say thank you so much for what you're doing.